Hi guys. We are about to read chapter 8. So in chapter 7, we found out that Mary might be quitting her job soon and leaving the house that she currently works at, the Bounds. I'm not sure how you say it. Bounds, I think. Um, and George Soper decides, okay, we got to act now. We can't lose her, basically. If we lose her, we will never be able to find her again, and she could keep infecting the city. So he takes it upon himself to go to the Board of Health, or the Health Department of New York City, and convince them that they need to take action. This department has the capabilities to basically arrest her if they need to. And he thinks that that would be the best plan because if not, she will keep infecting the city and spread this disease, and people will keep dying. I feel a sneeze coming. Hopefully not. But anyway, so we are going to start chapter 8. It is called So the health department decides, okay, yeah, we will go get her, but we're going to send a woman this time because clearly the way you and your associate spoke to her was not successful, so we think maybe a woman might have a better approach. So, this is where things might get interesting. We'll see. This is called In Which Mary Fights Like a Caged Lion. I have a feeling she's not going to respond well if that's the title of the chapter. No one in the health department told the tiny woman that Mary might be difficult. Not Herman Biggs, not George Soper, not even her boss, Dr. Walter Bensel. They kept Mary's temper and temperament a secret. I learned afterward that Dr. Soper had reasons to suspect that Mary might make trouble, Dr. Josephine Baker wrote in her autobiography, but I knew nothing of that. On Monday, March 18th, 1907, Dr. Baker headed to the Boone's townhouse at 688 Park Avenue, where Soper had first confronted Mary. Baker believed she was on a routine call to collect blood, feces, and urine. No doubt the case felt personal to Baker. She had lost her father to typhoid when she was 16. He had caught the disease from contaminated water. She knew firsthand the ravages of the disease and the effect it had on her and her family. As a result of her personal loss, she gave up a scholarship to Vassar College and attended medical school instead. She graduated from the Women's Medical College of New York Infirmary in 1898. In 1907, Baker was one of the few female physicians in New York City. Instead of having a private medical practice, she became a roving inspector for the health department. Her job took her deep into the Lower East Side's tenement district, where she worked closely with impoverished mothers and their children. Though she came from a well-to-do family, Baker devoted her life to improving the health of the poor. She understood the connection between poverty and poor health. The poor didn't have the same access to adequate nutrition, safe and sanitary housing, and health care. These conditions increased the risk factors for contagious diseases. By 1907, the city had initiated public water and public sewer projects, as well as street cleaning and regular garbage removal. The city had also passed the Tenement House Act in order to improve living conditions. The new law required tenements to provide fire escapes, better ventilation, and access to natural light. These important improvements reduced the incidence of disease, but they did not address the reasons for poverty. Many people continued to live in dire conditions, especially in the Lower East Side, where large immigrant families and their boarders crowded into 2- and 3-bedroom flats in over 80,000 tenement buildings. As a medical examiner, Baker saw the effects of poverty firsthand. Even with the new law, the tenements were overcrowded and dirty. Families lacked healthful food and medical care. Some simply didn't have enough food. Working mostly with immigrant families, Baker delivered babies and taught mothers how to care for their children. She worked to improve hygiene and sanitary conditions. It was probably hard work. I climbed stair after stair, knocked on door after door, met drunk after drunk, filthy mother after filthy mother, and dying baby after dying baby, she later recalled. It was the hardest physical labor I did in my life. Just backache and perspiration and digest, and discouragement and aching feet day in and day out. Baker was prejudiced when it came to Irish immigrants, whom she called incredibly shiftless and wholly lacking in any ambition and dirty to an unbelievable degree. For this reason, she may have been surprised when she saw Mary Mallon in the Park Avenue kitchen. Mary did not fit Baker's low opinion of Irish immigrants, for there stood a clean, neat woman wearing a blue calico dress. She had a firm mouth and her hair was wound in a tight knot at the back of her head. Baker called Mary a self-respecting woman. Mary's appearance may have encouraged Baker. Using as much tact as possible, she told Mary that she had come to collect urine and blood samples. Mary set her jaw. No, she said, and she returned to her work. She said it in a way that left little room for persuasion or argument, wrote Baker. Baker summed Mary up quickly. Obviously, there was another case of the blind, panicky distrust of doctors and all their works which crops up so often among the uneducated, she said, and then she added, and among the educated too, for that matter. Later, Baker wrote that she felt like a failure when she left Mary's kitchen without a specimen. She dreaded making the telephone call to Dr. Bensel, telling him she hadn't collected them. Baker may have felt like a failure, but others knew her as wiry, shrewd, and ingenious. More than likely, her resolve hardened for this tiny woman, whose friends call her Dr. Joe. Her name's Dr. Josephine. And who wore man-tailored suits and shirts and stiff collars and ties so that her male colleagues didn't dismiss her or condescend to her because she was female. She did not back down from a fight. 10 years earlier, fresh out of medical school, Baker had slugged a drunken man who had thrown scalding water on a pregnant wife. I doubled my fist and hit him, she said. It was beautifully timed. He toppled backward, struck about a third of the way down a rather long stair, and slid to the bottom with a hideous crash. She didn't know if she had killed him and didn't care. He was in a way that was not fit to live anyhow, and I had taken the first handy means of getting rid of him, wrote Baker. I was not sorry. But she added, I was not glad either. It had just been a part of this particular job. The man lay at the foot of the stairs and he wasn't dead. Baker had knocked him out. On her way out of the building, she stepped over his body. He woke just in time to swear at her. After making the difficult phone call about Mary Mallon to her superior, Baker awaited further instructions. Later that night, Bensel called her, telling her to wait at the corner of Park Avenue and 67th Street at 7:30 sharp the next morning. There, an ambulance and 3 policemen would be waiting for her. We were to go to this house and get the blood and urine specimens, said Baker, and if Mary resisted, we were to take her to the Willard Parker Hospital by force if necessary. Little did Baker know that she and Mary shared the same sort of strength and determination, and that Mary, too, did not back down from a fight. That night, it snowed lightly. The next morning, March 19th, Baker waited with 3 policemen at the snow-covered corner, as Bensel had instructed. Soon, a horse-drawn ambulance pulled up. Baker stationed 1 police officer around the corner from the house, and another in front of the house. The 3rd officer accompanied her to the servants' back entrance. This way, she figured, all possible escape routes were blocked. Escorted by the officer, she approached the kitchen door and knocked. To her shock, Mary had already spotted her and was armed and ready, holding a long kitchen fork in her hand like a knife. She plunged at Baker with the fork. Caught off guard, it seemed that Soper didn't warn Baker about carving forks. Baker recoiled, falling backward onto the officer. This time it was Mary who bolted back through the kitchen. Too late. Baker and the officer scrambled to their feet. By the time we got to the door, Mary had disappeared. She had completely vanished. Baker and the police officers searched the house from top to bottom, but they could not find Mary. They questioned the maids, but the maids denied seeing her. The search party moved to the backyard. There, Baker spotted footprints in the snow, so she followed the footprints to a tall fence. A chair had been propped next to the fence, and snow was knocked off the top of the fence. Someone had scaled it. The police officers searched the neighbor's house, but found no sign of Mary. The servants were questioned. No one admitted seeing Mary or knew where she might be. It was utter defeat, said Baker. She telephoned her supervisor, giving him the hard news about Mary's escape. Dr. Benzel wasn't interested in excuses. I expect you to get the specimens or to take Mary to the hospital, he told Baker, and hung up. Enlisting the help of 2 more policemen, Baker searched for 2 more hours. We went through every closet, nook, and cranny of the 2 houses, she said. Discouraged, Baker called it quits. As she started out the front door and down the stairs, Baker worried about how she would face her boss. Baker and the policeman stood on the sidewall. One of the policemen tapped her arm and pointed to several ash cans piled in front of a door beneath a stoop. A tiny fold of blue calico was stuck in the door. The exact calico of the dress Mary was wearing. Euphoric, Baker realized that the maids had helped Mary hide. She admired the way the servants had stuck together, calling it evidence of class solidarity. As distressed as she was, Baker said she liked that loyalty. Together, she and the policeman pulled away the ash cans and pried the door open. She came out fighting and swearing, wrote Baker, both of which she could do with appalling efficiency and vigor. Once more, she tried to reason with Mary. I made another effort to talk to her sensibly, but talk proved futile. Mary was convinced that the Board of Health was persecuting her when she had done nothing wrong and never had typhoid fever. She was maniacal in her integrity, wrote Baker. There was nothing I could do but take her with us. And so Baker did. She ordered the policeman to force Mary into the ambulance. Mary kicked and screamed and swore and fought for her life. It took 4 policemen to lift her into the vehicle. Baker climbed in behind them. To keep Mary from escaping, the tiny doctor sat on her chest, pinning her to the floor of the ambulance. Though today medical professionals are trained to avoid language that dehumanizes their patients, Baker wrote, it was like being in a cage with an angry lion. Later, Baker would tell a reporter, the hardest dollars I ever earned were those I got as a $100 a month health department employee when I was sent to get Mary Mallon. So, I guess she was successful and able to, well, I guess she isn't successful yet. They haven't gotten the specimens. But she did try. She thought they lost her. They did not lose her. She was hiding. And they were able to find her and collect her in the hopes to take her to the hospital to collect a sample. So, I guess a woman didn't have any better luck whatsoever than the gentleman did at the beginning. And they're on their way to the hospital to get some samples. So we will see if she is in fact a healthy carrier, or if it is, as Mary says, just a coincidence that all of these people in New York City have been getting sick and they just happen to be around her. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think it will be easy collecting these samples? Because remember, they needed blood, urine, and feces. So if someone is uncooperative, do you think it will be easy to collect those types of samples for their testing that they are wanting to do with them?